The Unlikely Innovators with Mike Commito and Steve Gravel. Presented by Cambrian R&D and the Center for Smart Mining.
Well, it finally happened.
We did it.
We did it. Mike got a hockey guest on the Unlikely Innovators. But I think if you listen to this conversation with Tom Pederson, you'll see why there's the connection. It wasn't just indulging me and having a hockey guest on. Again, I think you'll agree that it was great to hear from Tom and his career in the NHL and some of the hockey stories he shared later in the episode. But the reason we wanted to have Tom on was because after his hockey career, he founded a company called Green Biscuit, which is, in my opinion, and I think in an opinion of a lot of people that use it, like the best off ice like puck that you can get. It's, I think, Steve, you would agree. You've used it in the office from time to time. We grew up playing road hockey where you're either, using a tennis ball and, the shots
Orange
are
ball.
sailing, or the orange ball, or you're trying to use a puck because maybe there's a little bit of ice on the road, but it doesn't really quite work the best, right? So like the Green Biscuit, uses, I guess, two pieces of plastic that are kind of held together by, they're fastened together so that the vibration or the friction you get on the road is kind of offset by the mechanisms inside the two discs. And so for me, it is unreal. It's great. But again, Steve, what were your thoughts on this chapter?
Well, I was just glad that you didn't have to smuggle in hockey talk into an episode for once. This was about hockey. It's our most hockey episode for sure. Although I have noticed hockey crops up in a lot of our episodes where there are hockey fans, which is fine. But I was glad to have this for you more than anything.
Oh, come on.
I kid. I mean, I think it's important. You always think about what do pro athletes do when they leave the game, and I think this is such a cool story. How Tom took us through every phase of how his business started with the Green Biscuit, and it really does stay flat on your stick. It doesn't curl up and get on an edge and go wiry. It's a really good product, and it's really interesting to see what's also coming down the pipe for Tom with those magnetic targets he was talking about.
Yeah, I just think, and he'll get into this in the conversation, so I won't stand in his way for too much longer, but I think, it's such a unique and interesting product. I think, especially for people of our vintage who grew up, making do with what we had available for street hockey, that, when he talked about how he just sent samples out across the world, because it's like, once you use it, like you're hooked, right? Like Absolutely. I have probably like 15 of these pucks in my house. Chantal, please close your ears. But like, it's so good that like, once you start using it, it's like, you need to have more of them, because I have to have some in my van, wherever I go. I have to have some in my office so I can play here. I have to have some in the garage so that, you can stick handle whenever the mood should strike you. So
to quote Mark Messier in a Lay's commercial, bet you can't have just one.
There you go. See, you're in the spirit now. So let's, on that note, let's just go straight to Tom and hear more about him and the Green Biscuit. So this is the first of Unlikely Innovators. We are now joined by Tom Pederson. Was drafted 217th overall by the Minnesota North Stars in 1989. He went on to play 240 career NHL games, chiefly with the San Jose Sharks. But since I am a Leafs fan, we will claim him as a member of the Leafs because he spent some time in Toronto as well. He finished his NHL career with 20 goals, 49 assists for 69 points. Following his professional career in North America, Tom played 2 seasons with the Hanover Scorpions in Germany. And then after hanging up his skates, Tom later created the Green Biscuit, an off-ice stick handling and passing aid, which stays flat on nearly any surface. And so we're so pleased to have Tom join us on the Unlikely Innovators. Tom, thanks for joining us this week.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
So I said it was a first for Unlikely Innovators because I do a lot of hockey writing on the side, and I think I've done a pretty good job. We've had the podcast for over a year now, and we haven't really got to talk about hockey. So I think I've been pretty restrained. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today about your hockey career and, of course, the Green Biscuit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. We're in 2 different parts of the world. I'm in California, where hockey doesn't hardly get much coverage, and you're in the Mecca, so it's quite the difference.
Yeah, no, it's I think this past winter I discovered that Sudbury has 50 plus outdoor rinks. So like you could literally, there's no shortage of places to play hockey or to go skating in the winter. So it really is a hot spot for hockey. So I'm appreciative of that. But we always start our conversations kind of trying to get a sense as to where, the guests have gone in their careers to get to the point where they've, founded a company or they developed a new product. But obviously you have an interesting path because you played in the NHL, and obviously as a hockey playing kid, every kid, dreams of going to the NHL, and you made it to the NHL, you made it to the highest level. But as you were kind of growing up and going through your hockey career, Did you ever have a plan for if it didn't work out that way? Did you have something in the back of your mind that if I don't make it in hockey, this is what I'm going to do? Or was it always just, I'm just set on my goal of making it to the show, and that's what you did?
Yeah, my mom tells a funny story about that, but if I said I was having trouble in math at school, and I said, well, I better make it in hockey because I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, maybe I'll be a garbage man. And there's nothing wrong with being a garbage man. They make good money, but it was just the point that I was motivated to make it in hockey, and everything was all about that 24/7 for me. I got a little ADD, and so what ADD does, it lets you hyper focus on certain things. And if you have that or any of that in you, you need to channel it and harness it and use it because it's there. And so you might as well take advantage of it. So I think that in a way helped me hyper focus on hockey, and now I'm hyper focusing on the business aspect of it. So that's about that.
Yeah. And I think, I've seen, Tom, I've seen a few vets of the NHL sort of be interviewed about this. And it's an interesting thing because, after the sort of luster wears off of your first couple of years in the league, you start to think about like what, you're like an injury away from being on the sidelines. And you often see, some of the advice you hear from vets is have a plan, for what you're going to do after hockey. What was it like transitioning from your playing career as a pro hockey player to, the after hockey world? Did you have a plan? Did you start to formulate one as you started
Yeah,
playing?
unfortunately, I fell flat on my face. It was not pretty, but I ended up ending my career the way that nobody wants to, and nobody thinks it's going to happen to them. I was in Germany. I went into the boards head first, and I broke my back. I had compression fractures at T3, T4, and I'm landing on the ice in this little rink in Germany, looking up at the ceiling, going, "What did I just do to myself here?" Because I knew I broke my back, couldn't move, and I'm like, "Oh my God," So that was in '99 in Germany, and so that was the end of my career. So I really was forced into doing something else. A lot of guys hang on and decide, well, should I play another year? Should I go over to Europe or play in the minors? I didn't have that option. But the transition, I was typical professional athlete, wasn't prepared, drank too much. Unfortunately, hockey players, they seem to like their cocktails. But I've been sober now 11 years. I'll have 12 years in November. So that changed my life. But the transition was tough. I don't know if so much it was, you're used to the limelight and now you're not. It was just not having a plan what I'm going to do. I tried a few different things and nothing really stuck. And then I came across the Green Biscuit, and then the magic happened.
Well, yeah. And I think that you set me up perfectly for that because, we were talking offline before we hopped on, and it was kind of like, we all grew up at different eras playing road hockey or street hockey. And, we used the tennis ball, or you tried to make do with whatever kind of pucks you had. I think when I was younger, I think we eventually got to the point where you had those orange pucks that, were a little bit better on the road, but they weren't really like a puck, So again, the idea, like it makes too much sense that we should have had something like this years ago because it's so great on the road in any kind of surface. But how did the idea for the Green Biscuit kind of come to you? And what was the process?
So I was getting near the end of my career with the Sharks. It would have been '95, and there's guys that hang around the rink, that just like to be around a hockey team, and there was a guy there, and he had this puck, and I knew him a little bit, and I started talking to him, and I put this thing down. I'm like, wow, this thing is slick. And I knew at the time my days were numbered in the NHL. I had injuries, and it's a hard league to get to, and I'd say it's a harder league to stay in. So I knew I was going to have to do something. So in my back of my mind, I thought this thing's really slick, and maybe I can make a play with this soon as a life after hockey. You get to stay in the sport, and so ended up buying the patent from the guy, and then just ended up paying royalties to him. And then I created the business, and away it went. I didn't have any business experience, but I knew how to talk to people and build relationships. And I think my hockey background gave me some credibility. But it's a great product. I mean, it's really slick. And so, I always feel bad for people that have to try and peddle crappy products, try and convince themselves and then try and convince someone else that this is better than anything else out there. So, that's kind of that's how it started. And then I did the name, I did Green Biscuit. That's people out here, they think it's a tech name, right? Because I'm in Silicon Valley. Like, okay, what do you do? Is it some software or something? I'm like, no, it's a hockey puck. And then they're like, what? But I'm doing an adult clinic at a rink, and I said, hey guys, I got some of these off ice pucks. I want everybody to grab your stick and come out in the parking lot with me afterwards. And I want to show you this thing. I think it will help you, because these adults, they're just big kids that play hockey. That's what they are. They want to, learn how to take a slap shot and do all the things that are relatively easy for me to do. So they want to learn that stuff. And I said, if anybody, I'm looking for some names for my puck, for my new business. And Hover Puck was one I came up with, didn't like it. I don't even know what the other ones were, but this guy in a big heavy set guy in a Hawaiian shirt, he goes, well, why don't you just call it the Green Biscuit? and it was green at the time. It didn't say Green Biscuit, but I looked at him like, you just named my company. I said, here, have as many of these as you want. And I still to this day have never met him. He's never come back and said, hey, do you know that I'm the guy that you talked to and you told me I named your company? I'd like to thank him again if I could, but I don't know how to find him. But that's kind of the genesis of Green Biscuit. I don't know if that answered some of your questions.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask too, because like sometimes we ask these questions and we find out that these threads exist in the career that we didn't know about, right? So you obviously, there was some idea about this kind of going back to your days with the Sharks, but like at what point did you actually found the company and like take it from purchasing the patent and then starting the company?
Well,
like how much after
it was a while. It was I got done playing hockey in '99. I didn't do this till '08. I tried to do real estate. I tried to take the Series 7 so I could be a commodities trader and investment guy. I sold heating and air conditioning. And then I coached a lot. And there was a place that you could do private lessons out here. And I could actually do pretty well with private lessons. But one day the guy calls me up and says, the rink's closed. I'm like, all right, when is it going to be open tomorrow? He goes, no, we're closed. I'm like, closed? Yeah. And so he had bankrupted it and lost the lease. And so that revenue for, I had a young growing family. I needed to do something. And so that was kind of what ended up happening. But I didn't, like I said, I spun my wheels for too long. It's a regret of mine, but what are you going to do? So '08 was when I started it really in earnest to bring the Green Biscuit to the masses.
Now, Tom, a lot of our listeners are founders themselves that have started companies that are either products or apps or software. And one of the things that we like to sort of ask folks that have started companies like this, so you bought the patent. What was the process like in '08 or after '08 for getting that from basically what you see in a patent document, which is often just a description, to making it a product that's manufacturable, that's mass manufacturable? Did the design change at all from the patent to where we are today? Can you talk us a bit more of the nuts and bolts of how it went from that sort of patent idea to what we see it is today?
No, it's pretty much the same as it was from the patent. You just get the patent reassigned to the person that from the original owner. The person that designed it is always going to be the what's the term? Not the owner of the patent, but always going to be listed as the patent person. So the guy that wrote the patent for me for this puck was Peter Dudley. And so if you went on the patent office, you'd find Peter Dudley's name there. And then, trying to find a manufacturer, do I have to go over to China, do it myself, because I've got no clue how to do that, but I met a guy at the rink and he goes, Tom, I can make this for you. And And that's how it started. And so, like I said, I believe relationships, are super important to successful business because, yeah, I'm the face of it, I guess, but I got a lot of people that are behind the scenes that I would not be where I am today without them. So my advice to anybody that wants to do this is surround yourself with great people that are smarter than you, people that know, don't be this type of person or entrepreneur that says, I got to be at the top and everyone else below me is going to be subservient and dumber than me. That's a mistake. Hire people and work with people that are a lot smarter than you, because those people often want to help people like you get to that next level and, teach you what they learned from somebody else. It's almost like a giving back thing, so I try and, work with obviously the best people that, and I don't have any ego in this anymore, 52 years old.
That's
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting too, because there's so many people that spend a lot of time and effort going to like mixers and networking events, and you've seemed to have built this whole business out of people that you sort of met that were kind people at the rink. So I think people should be going to hockey rinks more to sort of launch their ventures.
Yeah, well, I'm obviously biased to hockey people. I think they're salt of the earth. I don't, I can't speak to other sports. I'm sure the other sports have great people in it too, and but we always see these stories of where things happen that aren't flattering to the sport or the person. So I don't think it's, unique to any sport. It just seems to happen less in hockey. I don't know.
Well, I was just going to say, I think your advice was sound, because I think the reason I still have a job today is just because I have surrounded myself with people that are smarter than me, and we've been able to kind of work together and kind of keep pushing the mission forward. But you talked about obviously not having a business background, and then you found the business and you start bringing the Green Biscuit to the masses, as you say. And it's funny because like I hadn't heard about it until it was in the middle of the pandemic. The first year, I didn't really do anything.
Seriously, you didn't know about what is wrong with you?
Well, I don't think we have enough time to go through all that list. But
what's wrong with him?
I mean, I can see if this. I can understand if you can say like 2010 or 2012 or whatever. You're talking 2020.
Yeah, so like that first year, like if you like, again, I'm sure in your area it's a little bit different, because like I think rollerblading is a lot bigger than because you've got the season to do it, right? But in Canada.
Go ahead.
Roller hockey, yeah, but like in Canada and in the States, in that first year when like everything shut down, like you saw that first trend where rollerblading became like all the rage again, right? Because you couldn't go to the rink. And so I didn't embrace it that first year, but in 2021 I finally like bought my first pair of rollerblades since I was a kid, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go and play on the road. And then at that same time, like I started to see these ads for Green Biscuit kind of pop up in my feed. I'm like, well, I guess like if I'm going to be rollerblading on the street, I'm going to have a puck. And I know that the pucks I use as a kid and the tennis ball is not going to be the feel that I want. So yeah. I got them and I use them to this.
Which one's that?
This is a custom one. So this has my book cover.
Oh, there you go. Right on.
In it. Yeah. But I guess where I was going with this is that I saw this through social media and marketing, right? But I guess you have the product, you have the patent, you figured out how to get it manufactured. What was it like, I guess, like getting the word out there to people to like buy this puck and like, this is the better, off ice training tool that you can get? Like, how was it like doing that part?
Yeah. And that part was a little bit challenging, but I just did not stop. You have to be relentless if you want to do this. If you have to be relentless, kick indoors, and you can people can tell you to go, as my mom used to say, go jump in a lake. I just did not take no for an answer, because I knew that if these people just tried it, they would be hooked. And so I still to this day, if I sell pucks to someone, you don't like it, I'll buy it back from you, like my retailers, or if I'm trying to if a new customer retailer contacts me and I said, listen, just take the pucks, take this many. If you don't sell them or don't want them anymore, I'll buy them back. And that's pretty tough to turn down as a retailer. Wait a minute, this guy's telling me that if I don't like them, I can give them back to him and I don't have to pay for them. Well, what do I got to lose? You got nothing to lose. And then they buy more, and we laugh about that. I'll bring it up. Remember when you didn't want to carry the puck? But so that part, was a little bit challenging. I sent out a lot of free samples when I started. I mean, I had thousands of dollars in samples all over the world. So, it's hard to quantitate that and get the numbers on what that did for sales and stuff like that. But I know it helped, to spread the word, as you say, and back in 08 and 9 and 10, the social media wasn't what it was today. It was a lot less, I guess. That's my impression. But, during the pandemic, my business exploded. I mean, I was shipping 400 or 500 packages a day with Amazon. I mean, I was like, do I really want to do this? And there's a Kid Rock song that I love, and it says, I wanted this, and so now I don't bitch. This is what I asked for.
Yeah.
I asked for this, and so I don't complain. You just, put in the hours and work and work and work. So, but the pandemic definitely drew a lot of attention to the Green Biscuit. I do think that was exposed to people like you that hadn't seen it before. Looking back, I think, I guess I didn't realize that many people had their head in the sand,
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it was like,
Sorry,
no,
Mike.
that's, I mean, like at that time, like I play hockey in the winter, like, with a group of guys. And then like in the summer, it wasn't necessarily something I really kind of thought about, but with so much, wanting to fill the void during the pandemic and seeing the rollerblading trend, I'm like, wow, this is like, it's a no brainer.
You know what's cool about the Green Biscuit it took me a while to kind of realize this is, I grew up in Minnesota, so we were Twins and Vikings fans. And so at halftime of the Vikings game, my dad and I would go out and throw the football in the field. We had a big, huge field right behind our house. And then 15 minutes, okay, the game started, we got to go back in. And we would do that. We'd have a catch with my father. And then, baseball, we'd be watching, like, let's go have a catch, Dad. So we'd throw the baseball back and forth. You could never do that with hockey because the pucks were terrible. They just sucked. So they weren't terrible. I mean, they were no good. This, you could actually do the same thing. My dad never played hockey, so I don't know if he would be able to do that, but lots of dads in Canada can.
Yeah.
And most dads in Minnesota, you can slide the puck back and forth with your kid or your daughter and have a conversation about life, and just, because the puck, you can sauce it 40, 50, 60 feet if you have the strength to do it, and it stays flat, and that's the key to the Green Biscuit. It doesn't go up on end and tail off into the trees or in the weeds. It stays flat, even on a rough surface. And that's what really sets it apart.
Yeah. And that's, to be honest, like, I think that's one of the things that I've noticed as well, is that, like, I've had those like little those like ice pads where you can shoot real pucks like in your driveway, but it's a whole process. You got to grab everything right. But then when we're outside playing in the yard and my daughters are on the road doing their thing, like, I just go on the street with my stick in a Green Biscuit and I can stick handle and just kind of, in between them while they're riding around or running around, and like they have a ball and they have their sticks too. So it is kind of one of those things where now you can do this all year round, right? Because you have the ability, whether it's in your office like we do here from time to time, when things kind of taper off on a Friday afternoon, or at the rink, like before you get on the ice, right? So I think it's
and the thing about, when young kids and, adults that, maybe playing an adult league that, they're on the ice, how much are they really touching the puck? If they're not one of the better players in the adult league, they're just skating around chasing the puck.
Yeah.
They're actually not improving. So, this is one of the things that, I do believe if you want to improve your skating, you actually have to be on the ice. You can rollerblade and maybe do the treadmill, but I think being on the ice is really the best way to do it. But stick handling and puck handling and getting comfortable with that puck on your stick. So every time you get the puck in a game, you don't have a stroke and freak out. You can relax and you can practice with the Green Biscuit off the ice to calm yourself down and build your confidence. So then you can take those skills and they translate right to the ice with the puck. I think that is something that is very valuable. And I wish, I talked to the adults about doing that. Adults, I don't know how many of them are going to go in their yard, in the garage and stick handle. I mean, some of the, real committed ones might, but I'm talking
Mike will.
I will.
Mike does for sure.
Yeah. I promise, Steve, I'll let you ask the next question, but I just wanted to say this as well, because like from a training perspective, like I agree with you, Tom, about like how if you're in an adult league, I'm one of those guys that's probably chasing the puck more than most. And so I have found though that in the past 2 years, by having rollerblades and being able to like rollerblade probably like 3-4 times a week and stick handle the entire time, like with a good training aid like this, like my skating and stick handling has improved a lot, which is not saying a lot because it was not great to begin with, but it is measurably better, like hands and feet from what it was like 3 years ago.
So. Then you'll have more fun. I mean, nobody likes to do something you're not good at for very long. I like it like golf. golf I love golf, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And you have to practice at golf if you want any chance of being good, unless you're just a natural. And I'm not at golf. So I don't practice or play as much as I should. So I'm not that good at golf. I wish I was better, but I guess I'm not really that committed.
Well, maybe you can develop the next training aid for golf too.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, so it seems to me that you've sort of innovated the way sort of off ice hockey training is being done and being played in yards and in driveways. Decide how you want to answer this, but do you have anything else that's coming down the slot or down the pipe that's in your mind that might be sort of what's coming next for Green Biscuit?
Well, I did just acquire a company called Top Shelf Targets. So it goes really good with the Green Biscuit. They're magnetic targets that stick to the goalposts, and you can you shoot them off, knock them off, work on your accuracy. So they're going to be coming to Canada in the retail in a bigger way. Right now, they're basically just on Amazon in Canada, but they're going to be coming to stores near you soon, as they say. So that'd be something that you'd be interested in if you wanted to work on that. You can work on your shooting. Few minor changes to the pucks, just tweaking some things to make them better. I get emails all the time about, people that love the product, but I also get emails from people that aren't happy with things. And so I talk to them and engage them, tell me about what you're seeing and what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And then I'll have prototypes and I'll send them to people, test this out. Tell me what you think. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, really. Try and break it or try and do something with it that, you're having problems with. Is this any better? So, I'm a big believer in communicating with the customer directly. Sometimes they'll be like, I can't believe the CEO from Green Biscuit. Are you really contacting me? from customer service. This is not some call center in India or something like that. No, it's me. So I believe in that, and that's probably partly a function of, hockey is not a great big giant industry. So if it was something that was obviously, an Apple product or something, like that wouldn't be happening. You're not going to be getting a direct message from Cook from Apple or or Bezos from Amazon. That's just not going to happen. So.
Well, I was gonna say my wife's not gonna like that you've acquired that company, because that just means I'm gonna be getting those magnetic targets coming to my house at some point.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of stuff that I won't buy, so I'll have to keep my eyes out for that. But Tom, one of the other things we wanted to ask you about today, and again, again, depending on how you want to take it, like I always think of it's a fun question where you hear, from time to time, if there was one thing you could change about hockey, what would it be? And sometimes people have different rule changes they'd want to see, or fundamental changes to the game itself. But as someone like you, who's obviously, played hockey professionally and is now still involved with hockey on the off ice side of things with Green Biscuit, is there one thing in your mind that you would, if you had a magic wand and you could change something in the game, what would it be? Do you have something that you could think of?
I think they got the rules pretty good. Some of the reviews, I don't like the review process. I feel like I know what a goal is and what a goal isn't. And I know what goalie interference is and isn't. I don't like that sometimes they'll make incidental contact with a goalie. It's totally unavoidable. And then they'll call a no goal on it. And I don't know that it's not a perfect world, but that's just frustrating. I think that goes across all sports, but in the playoffs, it comes down to a lot of stuff like that. The one thing it's not really a rule thing, but I was thinking about, I don't know about you, but every chance I got when I played hockey, every scoring chance I got, if I had enough time to take a slap shot, take a clapper, I was doing it. I could shoot when I was playing, I could shoot at about 98 miles an hour. Okay. So 98 miles an hour is, going to go by a lot of goalies, depending on what distance. I mean, if I'm in 10 feet, I'm not shooting a slap shot, but the goalies are so good right now. They're so good, and they were so good when I played. You're not going to score on them from the top of the circle on a snapshot. I mean, unless you're a guy like, I watch Brent Burns, whose snapshot is about as fast, as hard as his slap shot. But not many guys have that package, so, and I just don't understand that these guys to take snapshots coming down the wing, and you're not going to score, but if you take a clapper, you might. And so that part I never understood. And then somebody said one time, well, they don't have enough time. I'm like, okay, well, you know exactly how much time you have as a player, because you're in the NHL. Do I have enough time to get a slap shot off, or do I have to shoot a snapshot that maybe I shoot for a rebound or whatever? But that's more of a player thing, preference. I'll have to take some polls when I'm down at the Shark Tank and ask, Logan Couture or Timo Meier. Timo Meier is something. I don't know how much you guys get to watch the Sharks there. They've been in a rough patch, as they say. But Timo Meier is a kid that, he plays with some jam. It's fun to watch him play. I don't know if you guys watch any West Coast hockey or not, but
I used to watch the Kings a lot. I did some writing for the Kings, a few years back, but yeah, it's those time change. It's tough to stay up on the East Coast, especially when you've got little kids and you try to get to bed before 10.
West Coast is way better for sports. I get my first game at 4:30. Your games.
That's unreal.
Yeah,
awesome.
We Steve and I were in Vancouver in May when the Leafs were playing like Tampa Bay in the playoffs, and we were finished. We were at a conference and we met a buddy at a bar to start watching the game. The game started at 4:00, and like by the time the game was over, we're like, well, we've had like 6 or 7 beers. Like, what are we gonna do? It's like it's 7 o'clock. We can't go.
It makes the night a lot shorter. It makes the night a lot shorter.
No, I would be in the same boat you're in. I wouldn't be watching any late night. The games are 7:30 in LA and 10:30 in East. Jesus, I think a lot of people, maybe people DVR them and watch them the next day. I don't know. But I don't like watching sporting events once I know the outcome. I'd rather not. Unless there's something that happened in the game that I want to see, like a fight or, some awesome goals or something like that. But, speaking of games, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when the Sharks came back and beat Vegas and scored those goals and then won in overtime, scored 4 goals.
Yep.
The most exciting sporting event I've ever been to. So it's 3-0. The series is over. I'm sitting with my daughter up in the alumni suite. I'm like, Lauren, let's get out of here so I don't get stuck up in the, for traffic and stuff. This game's over. And it was like 12 or 13 minutes left. And I'm like, well, do you remember the game I'm talking about or not?
Yeah, I know. It was Pavelski,
Pavelski got a 5-minute major. You could go on YouTube, but there's a clip with just all the goals. It's something. I'm at this game. It's by far the most exciting sporting event I've ever been to. And I've been to a few. But we decided to stay. They got 1 goal. I'm like, okay, we're going to stay now, Lauren. And then it was just bedlam. Yeah. So that was a special time for the Sharks. But there's a good YouTube clip with shows basically from the cross check, the penalty, the 5-minute major to the rest of the game.
Yeah. And it was a game 7, right? So it was like
it was a game 7. Yep. And Barclay Goodrow.
Yeah.
Yep. We're up there with the 49ers because the 49ers came in there, and McClatchy, he's a lineman, and then Joe Staley, who just retired. These guys they're monsters, and I'm not very tall. And so I got a picture with these guys. I'm in the middle of these 2 guys. We were all high-fiving, fist bumping, chest bumping. Guys, girls hugging. It was awesome. So, I've never been to a hockey game that was that wild, but it was
some of those football guys. You're really glad they're not on skates moving forward too. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd get out of their way.
Yeah. Hey, you've been super generous with your time, Tom. I think where we want to leave it, I'll tell you, I was once at a wedding when I was a kid with Marty McSorley, and he was pretty much taking like almost a lineup of kids asking him, about hockey stories. So I would be remiss if we didn't ask you if you could share us a good hockey story from your career before we send you on your way today.
Well, I can share a couple. I'll tell you, Marty McSorley. We're playing at the Cow Palace up there in 92 or 93. He punches me in the back of the head in a scrum. I'm a rookie. I look around there, I'm like, what is Marty McSorley punching me in the back of the head? I'm no threat to him. I'm not going to start anything with him. I want to live. And so then I saw him in the bar after the game. We were at the same, I was living in the hotel because I was up and down from the minors, and they were staying at the same hotel the Kings were. And so we were at the bar, and I said, why would you do that? He goes, because I can. That was his response. But other stories, one that was pretty complimentary of was, growing up, my idol was Paul Coffey. As a defenseman, I looked up to him. I just loved the way he played and he skated. And so when we beat Detroit in 93, 94, we took them to 7 games. We were an 8 seed with the Sharks, and they were a 1 seed. I mean, they had Yzerman, Fedorov, Lidstrom, Coffey. We had Pederson, Krupa, Cronin. But what they didn't know is we had a guy by the name of Arturs Urbe as our goalie.
Yeah.
And he was the difference maker. And so we hung on. We had a great power play. Anyway, after we were shaking hands in Detroit after that. And I had probably played the best hockey of my life. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what had ended up happening. I just had a great series, and that was probably the highlight of my professional career. And we're shaking hands, and we're toward the end, and Paul Coffey says to me, I shake his hand, like, this is my idol. I don't tell him that, but he pulls me aside, just kind of like, hey man, you were unbelievable. Where did you come from? Like, we had no idea who you were. Like, more or less, we should have been paying more attention to you. And that was quite a nice thing for him to say. And then what else? Oh, the Bob Probert story. I mean, Proby was awesome. I mean, I kind of played against him at the end of his career, and we're playing in San Jose. We beat him the first year in 93, 94 in 7 games, and we ended up playing him in the first round the next year, and they beat us 4 straight. They were having none of it. Mm-hmm. And so Probert, there was like a scrum by our bench, and Jeff Norton, I don't know if you remember that name. He says to Probert, he goes, "Hey Bob, why don't you take another pill?" and Proby was, he had some substance abuse issues, and he was taking that anti-abuse. It's a pill you take, so if you drink, you get super sick. So you don't drink when you take it. And if you know anything about when you're playing against Bob Probert, you don't know who's going to show up that night. He might just sleep through the game. And if he wants to sleep through the game, what do? You let him sleep through the game.
You don't you don't poke the bear.
Don't poke the bear. Yeah. Don't poke the bear, right? Let him sleep, because he was a scorer, fight, hit, mean, tough, gave a lot of other guys on the ice a lot of room, right? And so we get in the locker room. It was toward the end of the period. Kevin Constantine walks in. He says, "Take another fucking pill, huh, Bob?" Like the game's close. It was probably after the first period. We hadn't, it was still, we could still win the game. And we talked about that. If Probert wants to sleep, let him sleep, right? It was priceless. Those are 2 funny stories that stick out in my mind. I know there's more if I thought about it. Oh, Wayne Gretzky told me he was going to kill me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I gotta hear that one.
I probably should have led with that one. So
okay.
Wayne, he did tell me he was going to kill me. He was coming back from a back injury, and I don't know if he was in St. Louis or LA at the time. I think he was in LA. And when you go at Wayne Gretzky, you kind of got to be careful when you're going to go at him one-on-one, but you can't sit back, because what's going to happen if you give him too much time? You're screwed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But if you're too aggressive, he's going to make you look stupid too. So you're kind of in a bad spot. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to guess he's going to turn to the right. Right. And so I just went full steam, and I didn't know which way he was going to turn, but he turned to the right, and I just blew him up. Blew him up. So the play gets broken up. We start going back up the ice. He's still in a heap in the corner. And so I'm moving up the ice, and he skates up. He's skating, getting back in the play. Oh, I'm gonna fucking kill you, Pederson. Blah 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 blah. And I was thinking afterwards, God, I'd like to have that on tape.
Yeah.
But it was quite an honor to play against Gretzky. I got to play against Lemieux. My perception was that Lemieux was better at the time I played against him, because Wayne was older at that time. But Mario was, he had a goal and 6 assists against us one game. But didn't get to play against him as much because he was in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
But Peter Forsberg was awesome. I mean, Peter Forsberg beat me in a one-on-one like I've never been beaten before. I mean, I don't feel bad because he did to a lot of people.
I was going to say, there's a lot of guys that are on that highlight reel with him, right? So
Forsberg was a guy that was, he wasn't he's 5'10", 5'11", but almost 220 pounds. So
yeah.
He's a load.
And he can move. And so that was, humbling and roasted by him. But yeah, those are some of the ones I remember. I'm sure there's more, but I'll have to think about them.
Thanks for sharing those. I'm sure Mike and I could listen to those all day, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, Steve started with McSorley, you ended with Gretzky, and we tied the two together.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say, wouldn't he get McSorley to kill you? He's not going to do that himself, is he?
Yeah, that's true. Well, and that was the other thing. I don't know. One other quick one. So Brendan Shanahan and Craig Janney played together in St. Louis, and Craig Janney got traded to the Sharks, and Shanny was still playing in St. Louis, and I slashed Shanahan on the back of the leg super hard. I did something to me, and I just reacted, and he was upset. And then the period ended, and Janney came up to me and goes, "Hey, Tommy, just so you know, just give you a heads up here. Watch Shanahan, watch him the rest of the game because he's not going to forget about you." So I'm trying to play and watch him when I'm on the ice. I don't know, Shanahan. That was kind of funny too. But I felt like I was a pretty honest player, and if I hit you clean, I didn't do anything. I was honest, pretty honest, and just played hard. At my size, I could get away with it.
Yeah,
it was acceptable. So.
Well, I mean, like I said, we could hear those all day, but we'll get you on. No. We'll get you on your way, Tom. It was so great to have you on, hear about your time in the league, and also the awesome things you're doing with Green Biscuit. I know that we both have hockey sticks in our offices, so I think we'll maybe go toss it around after this. But it was great. It was great to have you on, man.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate it, guys, and good luck. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks again, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Take care.
See you later.
All right, we're back. That was a great chat we just had with Tom Pederson, obviously former NHLer and founder of the Green Biscuit. Mike, takeaways? I know this was like living a dream for you, having an NHLer on our pod. So what do you think?
No, I mean, you will, as I probably shared the story before, I screened Wayne Gretzky, but Wayne Gretzky threatened to kill Tom Pederson. So I think Tom wins our hockey stories that we could share.
The Gretzky off.
Yeah, the one thing I did kind of want to leave maybe you and the listeners with, and maybe you have a thought on this as well, but I'll go first to maybe allow you to kind of formulate a thought. But when we asked Tom about like what he would change with hockey, I think where he was getting at was he'd like to see more, slap shots like coming down the slot. And again, I always go back to those YouTube videos where guys are just coming down with a full head of steam and they just wind up and just like fire it. Like, I agree. I have a nostalgia for that. I'd love to see more do that. I think you've got the guys like Ovechkin and Stamkos who do it great as a one-timer from a face-off circle, but I love seeing people just go straight down the slot and just crank it. But that's not the rule change I would have. My stump that I've been on for many years is that there was once upon a time, back in the early days of hockey before like the mid 1950s, when if you had a minor penalty, you had to serve that entire penalty no matter how many times the opposing team scored. So eventually, after teams like the Montreal Canadiens, who had like a power play unit with 5 future Hall of Famers, just kept, I think there was one game in particular where Jean Beliveau scored a hat trick in like, a minute and 44 seconds or something like that. You can fact check me later, but it's something along those lines. So at the end of the season, all the owners get together and they put a rule in place that like once a power play goal is scored, that's it. The player exits the box and you go back to even strength. And it was this big, the Canadians were upset because obviously they were benefiting from this rule change and they were upset. I forget how the story goes, but basically, Frank Selke leaves the room and says, if you want, like, get a power play of your own, if that's how you feel. Right. So my thing, this is a really long way of getting to my point, but in the interest of trying to promote goal scoring in the league right now, I would love it if they went back to that rule where if you get a minor penalty, you're in the box for that full 2 minutes and let that team do their worst, what they can do in 2 minutes. Again, It adds some other, fatigue factors to the game when you have to be killing every single minor penalty you get. But nevertheless, I think it would be really exciting and interesting if nothing else.
Yeah, in a similar vein, and this is really insane, but this is my thoughts on the thing. I always thought it was unfair that when a goaltender got a penalty, someone else had to serve the penalty for them.
You want the goalie in the box?
I want the goalie in the box and the backup goalie in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you want to promote goal scoring, have a really cold goaltender come in at the end of the third period when your goalie gets a friggin' penalty.
I like that. I really like that idea. And once upon a time, the goaltenders did serve their penalties.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that idea because why couldn't you do that, right? If the goalie committed the infraction, they should serve it, and then you have a backup goaltender, throw them in the net. Again, I guess things get really interesting if something were to happen to that backup goaltender during that power play and your goalie's in the serving the penalty. You got the emergency backup coming down from the stands to suit
more
up.
Emergency backups. I think it's a way to promote more emergency backup scenarios.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I wanted to say was, in the words of Norm Macdonald, always bet on hockey and basketball and never bet on football because the ball ain't round.
Oh, see, and so I had my hockey episode and you brought Norm Macdonald up. So I think,
have to.
I think we're square now.
Got to do it.
Okay. Well, again, thanks again for joining us this week on the Unlikely Innovators. If you have kids in your house or you're like me and you're in your mid 30s and you still like to play hockey whenever you can, check out the Green Biscuit. It honestly is a great product. He did not pay us to say that. It is just me, singing my praises as I always do for the Green Biscuit.
But if you do want to enter into an advertising agreement with us, we have yet to do that.
Yeah. So drop us a line, give us 5 stars. We'll see you next time on the Unlikely Innovators.
Bye-bye.
The Unlikely Innovators with Mike Commito and Steve Gravel. Presented by Cambrian R&D and the Center for Smart Mining.